Sabine Creed knew something was wrong the moment the ballroom lights went dark. 1 second, she was standing near the dessert table with a silver tray in her hands, trying not to look nervous around people who wore watches more expensive than her bakery oven. The next second, every rich voice in the room went quiet. A huge screen lowered above the stage. Soft music played from hidden speakers. Then a photo appeared on the screen. Sabine's heart stopped. It was a cupcake. Not just any cupcake. Her cupcake, dark honey cake. Gold cream frosting. A thin crown of burnt sugar. 3 tiny flakes of sea salt on top. It was the exact cupcake her grandmother, Mama Inez, had created years ago. The same cupcake Sabine had spent lonely nights perfecting after her ex-fiancé broke her heart and left her with debt, shame, and flour on her apron. But the name under the picture did not say Velvet Ember Bakery. It said, A. Drexler King Original. Presented by Voss Meridian Group. Sabine's fingers tightened around the tray. For a moment, she could not breathe. Across the ballroom, Amory Voss stood beside the stage in a black suit, tall and still as a statue. He was the billionaire CEO who had walked into her bakery 6 weeks ago and changed the air in the room without even trying. He was the man who had looked at her cupcakes like they were memories. The man who had asked her to cater this event. The man who had made her wonder if maybe, just maybe, her heart was not dead after all. But now his company's name was on the screen beside the stolen recipe. Sabine looked at him. Amory looked back at her. And for the first time since she had met him, his face was not calm. It was shocked, then angry, then something worse. Guilty. Naira Bloom, Sabine's best friend and bakery manager, leaned close and whispered, Please tell me I am not looking at your stolen cupcake on that big expensive television. Did not answer. Because the man walking onto the stage had already stolen more than a cupcake from her. Drexler King smiled like he had never ruined anyone's life. He wore a velvet tuxedo and held a microphone with the confidence of a man who had practiced lying in the mirror. The crowd clapped for him. Sabine heard the applause and felt something inside her crack. Drexler lifted his hand and smiled wider. Good evening, Philadelphia, Drexler said smoothly. Tonight, I am proud to introduce a dessert inspired by love, legacy, and family. Naira made a small choking sound. Family? That man treated loyalty like a free trial. Sabine still did not laugh. Her eyes burned, but she refused to cry. Drexler picked up one of the cupcakes from a gold plate and held it up like a trophy. This recipe has lived in my heart for years, Drexler said. That was when Sabine moved, 1 step, then another. People turned to look at her. A security guard shifted near the stage, but Amory raised one hand, stopping him. Sabine climbed the short steps and walked straight toward Drexler. The ballroom went silent. Drexler's smile flickered when he saw her. Drexler said softly, as if they were old friends. Wow, I did not know you were here. Looked at the cupcake in his hand. Then she looked at Amory. Her voice was low, but every person near the stage heard it. Grandmother died with flour on her hands and prayers in her mouth, Sabine said. She gave me that recipe when I had nothing but grief and a dream. And tonight I am watching the man who betrayed me sell it under the name of the man I almost trusted. The silence became heavy. Amory stepped forward. Amory said carefully, I did not know. Sabine's chin stayed high, even though her heart felt like it was falling apart. That is the problem with powerful men, Sabine said. Somehow, they never know until a woman is already broken. A few people gasped. Drexler lowered the microphone. Amory looked like he wanted to cross the stage, but Sabine had already turned away. She placed the silver tray on the edge of the stage. One cupcake rolled off and landed near Amory's polished shoe. Nobody moved. Sabine walked down the steps, past the stunned guests, past the cameras, past the crystal lights and champagne glasses. But before she reached the ballroom doors, Garnet Voss stood near the shadows with a small smile on his face. Because Garnet knew something Sabine did not. By morning, an eviction notice would be taped to the front door of Velvet Ember Bakery, and the company behind it would have the Voss name buried deep in the paperwork. But how did Sabine Creed, a hardworking baker from Queen Village, end up trapped between a cold billionaire CEO, a stolen recipe, and a family secret powerful enough to destroy everything she loved? To understand that, the story has to go back 6 weeks. Back to a rainy morning in Philadelphia. Back to a little bakery with foggy windows, warm ovens, and one cupcake that made a billionaire remember how it felt to have a heart. 6 weeks earlier, rain tapped against the front windows of Velvet Ember Bakery. The bakery sat on a quiet corner in Queen Village, not too far from South Street. It had dark green trim, warm yellow lights, and a hand-painted sign that read, Velvet Ember Bakery, sweetness after the fire. Inside, the place smelled like butter, brown sugar, cinnamon, and hope. Sabine Creed stood behind the counter with flour on her cheek and worry in her eyes. She was beautiful in a simple way. Not the kind of beauty that begged for attention. The kind that made people look twice and then feel bad for starring. Her dark curls were wrapped in a printed scarf. Her gold hoops moved when she turned her head, and her apron had one stubborn chocolate stain that refused to leave. Naira Bloom leaned against the counter, counting the money in the register for the third time. Naira was tall, stylish, and dramatic enough to make a leaking sink sound like a national emergency. She had been Sabine's best friend since middle school, and she loved Sabine like family. Naira closed the register and sighed. Sabine, this register is not registering. Looked up from the tray of cupcakes. What does that mean? Naira tapped the side of the cash drawer. It means this drawer is giving broke but blessed. Almost smiled, but the smile died fast. Short are we? Sabine asked. Naira hesitated. That was answer enough. Sabine wiped her hands on her apron. Naira sighed again. Rent is due next week. Supplier bill is due Friday. Oven repair is still unpaid. And Mr. Calloway from the property office called twice. Closed her eyes. Mr. Calloway managed the building for a holding company Sabine had never met. He had been polite for years, but lately his voice had changed. Shorter. Colder. Like someone above him was pressing down. Sabine opened her eyes and looked around the bakery. Every table meant something. The little round table near the window was where Mama Inez used to sit and drink tea. The long wooden counter had been sanded by Sabine's own hands. The wall near the kitchen had photos of birthdays, weddings, baby showers, and old women from church holding cupcake boxes like they were treasure. Velvet Ember was not just a business. It was Sabine's life after heartbreak. 2 years earlier, Sabine had believed she would marry Drexler King. Drexler had been charming. Too charming, now that Sabine looked back on it. He had big dreams, smooth words, and a way of making betrayal sound like an accident. They had planned to open the bakery together. Then Drexler cheated, drained their joint business savings, and vanished with several pages from Mama Inez's private recipe journal. By the time Sabine understood what had happened, the damage was done, bills were unpaid. Her heart was shattered. People whispered. Some pitied her. Some blamed her for trusting him. But Mama Inez had raised Sabine with a strong spine. So Sabine cried at night and baked at dawn. She opened Velvet Ember alone. She worked until her feet ached. She smiled at customers even when her chest felt hollow, and slowly the bakery became known for one cupcake above all others. Honey, dark honey cake, gold cream frosting, burnt sugar crown, sea salt on top, Mama Inez's masterpiece. Sabine looked at the fresh tray now cooling near the window. Naira followed her gaze. Girl, those cupcakes look good enough to make somebody's rich uncle change his will, Naira said. Sabine gave a tired laugh. At this point, I will accept a normal customer buying 3. Bell over the door rang. Both women looked up. An older man in a raincoat stepped inside, shaking water off his umbrella. Sabine smiled warmly. Morning, Mr. Arlen, the usual. Mr. Arlen nodded. 2 lemon creams for my wife and one of those honey ones for me, but do not tell her. Doctor said less sugar. Naira grabbed a box. Mr. Arlen, this bakery supports love, not lies. Arlen chuckled. Then write salad on the box. Laughed for real this time. Moments like that kept her going. Across Center City, high above the wet streets, Amory Voss stood in his office at Voss Meridian Tower. His world did not smell like butter or cinnamon. It smelled like leather chairs, expensive coffee, and people too scared to speak first. Amory's office faced the Philadelphia skyline. Far below, traffic moved through the rain. His desk was black marble. His suit was charcoal. His expression was unreadable. At 37, Amory Voss had the kind of power people whispered about. Voss Meridian Group owned hotels, real estate, logistics companies, and private security firms. The company had legal money, public success, and private rumors. Older people in Philadelphia still remembered Amory's father, Augustus Voss. They said Augustus built the first Voss fortune in places where contracts were signed quietly and questions were not welcome. Amory had spent years cleaning the family name. He ran the company with discipline. No scandals, no wild parties, no public romance, no weakness. At least that was what people believed. Then Briar Whitlock walked into his office holding a white bakery box. Briar was Amory's communications director. She was white, sharp-eyed, and brave in the way only a woman with too many crisis plans could be. She was one of the few people at Voss Meridian who spoke to Amory like he was human and not a weather event. Before the 10 o'clock call, Breyer said, "There is a small emergency." Amory did not look up from the file in his hand. "Define small." Placed the box on his desk. "Cupcake related." Amory finally looked up. Breyer pointed at the box. "A vendor dropped off samples for next month's Rittenhouse Investor Gala. Most tasted like sweet cardboard with ambition. But this one," she tapped the lid. "This one is different." Stared at the box. "I do not have time for dessert," Amory said. Breyer folded her arms. "That is sad, not surprising, but sad." Opened the box. Inside sat one midnight honey cupcake. The moment Amory saw it, his hand paused. The dark cake. The golden frosting. The burnt sugar crown. Something old moved inside his chest. His mother, Celeste Voss, had made cupcakes when he was a boy. Not the same kind, but close enough that memory rose like steam. He remembered her in a yellow kitchen, humming old soul songs, her hands dusted with flour. He remembered being 8 years old and sitting on a stool, watching her swirl frosting with care. He remembered her saying, "A sweet thing made with love can find the part of a person they forgot was still alive." Then she got sick. Then she was gone. After that, Augustus Voss turned their home into a cold place. No songs, no soft words, no cupcakes. Amory picked up the cupcake and took one bite. He froze. Breyer stopped talking. The rain tapped the glass behind him. For several seconds, Amory said nothing. His face did not change much, but Breyer noticed his hand tighten around the little paper wrapper. Amory swallowed slowly. "Where did this come from?" Amory asked. Breyer's voice softened. "Velvet Ember Bakery, Queen Village. Owner's name is Sabine Creed." Amory looked down at the cupcake again. "Cancel my lunch meeting," Amory said. Breyer blinked. "Amory, that meeting is with people who flew in from Dallas." "It too," smiled a little. "Over a cupcake." Amory closed the box. "Over a question." This is the kind of moment that changes a whole story. If this episode already has viewers wondering why one cupcake shook a billionaire like that, this is the perfect time to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay close, because Amory Voss is about to walk into a bakery and meet the one woman who does not care about his money. That afternoon, a black car stopped outside Velvet Ember Bakery. Sabine was in the kitchen when Naira poked her head through the doorway. "Sabine," Naira whispered loudly. Sabine looked up from mixing frosting. "What?" Naira pointed toward the front. "There is a man in the bakery." Sabine blinked. "Naira, that is usually how customers work." Naira shook her head. "No, this is not a regular man. This is a tax bracket in a coat." Wiped her hands and walked to the front. Amory Voss stood near the display case. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in a dark overcoat that looked custom-made for a man who did not wait in lines. His skin was deep brown, his beard was neat, and his eyes were calm in a way that made the whole room feel like it needed to behave. Sabine had seen powerful men before. Drexler had wanted to look powerful. Amory simply was. Still, Sabine stepped behind the counter and smiled with polite distance. "Welcome to Velvet Ember," Sabine said. "First time in?" Amory looked at her. For a moment, he forgot what he came to say. Sabine's voice was warm, but her eyes were careful. Her beauty did not feel polished for the world. It felt lived in, real, like Sunday morning light through kitchen curtains. "Yes," Amory said. "First time." Gestured toward the case. "What kind of day are you having?" Amory paused. "What?" Naira turned away and pretended to wipe the counter so she could listen better. Sabine said, "People choose cupcakes based on the kind of day they are having. Bad days need chocolate. Good days need lemon. Complicated days need salted caramel. Dangerous-looking days usually need coffee first." Naira coughed to cover a laugh. Amory's mouth almost moved into a smile. "Dangerous-looking?" Amory asked. Sabine shrugged. "That coat has secrets," Naira whispered, "and probably a security deposit." Amory looked toward Naira. Naira immediately became very interested in a napkin stack. Sabine said, "The Midnight Honey is our best seller." "I know," Amory said. Sabine studied him. "Then maybe this is not really a first time. My assistant brought me one. And now the assistant is safe from being fired?" Sabine asked. This time Amory did smile, a little. "She is very safe." Placed a Midnight Honey cupcake in a small box. Amory took out a black card. Sabine pointed at the sign near the register. $5. Amory looked at the card, then at the sign. Sabine raised an eyebrow. "Unless the cupcake insulted someone important, in which case it is still $5. Omri paid. Naira looked like she might bite her own lip off, trying not to laugh. Omri took the box and turned to leave, but something made him stop. Did the recipe come from family? Omri asked. Sabine's expression changed, just a small change, but Omri saw it. Grandmother, Sabine said. Mama Inez, Omri nodded slowly. It tastes like memory. Did not know what to say to that. Most people said it tasted good, sweet, rich, different. Nobody had ever said it tasted like memory. Omri left before she could respond. When the door closed, Naira slapped the counter with both hands. Sabine Creed, Naira said. That man just walked in here looking like a wealthy storm cloud and said your cupcake tastes like memory. That was either poetry or a warning. Went back to the kitchen, but her hands were not steady. Omri came back the next day, then 2 days later, then again on Friday morning. Always one midnight honey cupcake. Always black coffee. Always exact payment. Always watching the bakery like it was a place he did not understand, but wanted to. Sabine told herself not to care. A man like Omri Voss was not safe. Not because he was mean. Because men with too much power could damage a life without even raising their voice. But Omri did not flirt like Drexler had. He did not promise the moon. He did not try to impress her with money. He sat at the small table near the window and took slow bites like each one mattered. One morning, a little boy dropped his cookie near Omri's shoe and stared up at him in horror. Omri looked down at the broken cookie. The bakery went quiet. The little boy's mother rushed over. I am so sorry. Omri bent, picked up the broken cookie with a napkin and looked at the boy. Was it a good cookie? Omri asked. The boy nodded. Omri glanced at Sabine. Can he have another? Sabine smiled. On the house. Omri looked back at the boy. Then this cookie had a purpose. It made room for a fresh one. Little boy grinned. Naira watched from behind the counter and whispered to Sabine. Okay, that was annoyingly sweet. Whispered back. Do not start. Naira whispered. I already started. I have a whole file in my mind. Days passed. Sabine learned small things about Omri. He did not like cinnamon in coffee. He answered calls with one-word sentences. He never took the last napkin from the dispenser. He looked uncomfortable when old love songs played, but he never asked her to turn them off. Omri learned things about Sabine too. She gave unsold muffins to an older woman who lived alone. She remembered every customer's favorite order. She smiled often, but not always with her eyes. And whenever someone mentioned love, marriage, or second chances, she became very busy with anything else. One evening, just before closing, Omri arrived while Sabine was carrying a heavy bag of flour from the back. He stepped forward. Let me help. Shifted the bag away. I have it. It is heavy. So are taxes, Sabine said. I handle those too. Omri looked at her for a second, then he stepped back. Sabine expected him to insist. He did not. Instead, Omri said, I apologize. Pause that surprised her. Drexler had never apologized without adding a speech about why it was partly her fault. Sabine lowered the bag onto the counter. You apologize fast, Sabine said. I make mistakes fast, Omri replied. A laugh escaped before Sabine could stop it. Omri looked pleased, but he did not overdo it. That was the problem. He was becoming harder to dislike. The next week, Breyer called the bakery. Naira answered, then mouthed silently to Sabine, rich people emergency. Took the phone. Breyer said, Ms. Creed, this is Breyer Whitlock from Voss Meridian Group. Mr. Voss would like to invite Velvet Ember Bakery to cater a private investor launch in the Rittenhouse Square area 3 weeks from Friday. Froze. That kind of event could pay 2 months of bills, maybe 3. Sabine said, how many guests? Breyer said, around 300. Almost dropped the phone. Naira grabbed Sabine's arm and whispered, say yes, but say it rich. Covered the phone. What does that mean? Naira whispered, add a pause. Cleared her throat and returned to the call. That depends on the terms. Said Mr. Voss expected that response. Sabine frowned. He did. Breyer sounded amused. He said Ms. Creed would not be dazzled by chandeliers or panic over numbers. He said she would ask for terms. Hated that her heart reacted. She said, my recipes stay mine. My staff gets paid fairly. We leave if any guest disrespects my people. Went silent for one beat. Then she said, those terms are acceptable. Naira put both hands over her mouth. Sabine looked at the bakery, at the peeling paint near the back hallway, at the oven that rattled like it had old secrets, at Mama Inez's photo on the wall. This event could help save Velvet Ember. Sabine said, then we accept. The call ended. Naira spun around the bakery. 300 rich people are about to eat our cupcakes, Naira said. Sabine, this is not a blessing. This is a blessing wearing a tuxedo. Laughed, but fear moved in her stomach. Good things made her nervous. Good things could turn. That evening, Amory came by near closing. Sabine stood behind the counter with her arms crossed. So, Sabine said, 300 guests, Amory nodded. Yes, you could have asked me yourself. I wanted Breyer to handle the formal request. Tilted her head. And the informal request? Amory looked at her for a long moment. I wanted to ask if this scares you, Amory said. Sabine's smile faded. She could have lied, but something about Amory made lies feel loud. Sabine said, It scares me. Why? Sabine looked toward the window. Rain had started again, turning the streetlights blurry. Because last time I trusted someone with my dream, he treated it like spare change, Sabine said. Amory's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. Drexler King? Sabine looked back fast. How do you know that name? Amory said. Breyer researched public vendors connected to your bakery. His name appeared in an old business filing. I should have mentioned it before saying his name. Stared at him. Then she gave a short laugh with no humor. At least you know when you sound suspicious. Amory said, I am not him. No, Sabine said. You are richer. That makes it worse. Amory accepted the hit. Sabine expected him to defend himself. He did not. Instead, Amory said, Then set the rules. Sabine blinked. What? Set the rules for how I deal with your business, Amory said. And with you. Was quiet. Outside, a bus rolled past on the wet street. Sabine said, No surprises. Amory nodded. No surprises. No touching my recipes. Never. No sending people to make decisions for me. Agreed. No acting like my bakery is cute because it is small. Amory looked around Velvet Ember, then back at her. I do not think it is cute because it is small, Amory said. I think it is powerful because people feel safe here. Looked away. That one got too close. Before the gala, Sabine and Naira worked like their lives depended on it. In some ways, they did. They tested flavors, planned trays, labeled boxes, and hired 2 extra helpers from the neighborhood. Sabine barely slept. Amory sent no flowers, no diamonds, no grand foolishness. He sent a printed schedule, a fair contract, and full payment for half the event up front. Naira looked at the deposit and fanned herself with a napkin. This man communicates in bank transfer, Naira said. Honestly, I have heard worse love languages. Pointed a spoon at her. It is not love. Naira leaned on the counter. Fine. It is emotionally responsible accounting with eye contact. Tried not to smile. 2 nights before the event, the bakery oven started making a horrible sound. Sabine stood in front of it with both hands on her head. No, 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 Sabine whispered. Not now. Naira opened the oven door and smoke puffed out lightly. Nothing dangerous, nothing dramatic, just enough to ruin a batch and Sabine's remaining piece. Naira coughed and waved a towel. This oven has chosen betrayal. Called the repairman, but he could not come until morning. At 8:17 p.m., Amory knocked on the locked front door. Sabine opened it, surprised. What are you doing here? Sabine asked. Amory looked past her at the trays, the flour, the stress. Breyer said there was an oven issue, Amory said. Sabine stared. Does Breyer monitor my appliances now? Amory held up both hands. No, Naira called her. Turned slowly toward Naira. Naira looked away. I called for moral and wealthy support. Closed her eyes. Naira. Amory said, There is a commercial kitchen at one of our boutique hotels near Rittenhouse. It is not in use tonight. Velvet Ember can use it. Wanted to refuse. Her pride stood up first. But then she looked at the ruined batch, at the deadline, at the bills. On my terms, Sabine said. Amory nodded. Always. They moved the ingredients and trays with help from Amory's driver and 2 hotel kitchen staff. The kitchen was clean, large, and so shiny Sabine felt like her cupcakes needed formal shoes. For hours, Sabine baked. Naira managed boxes. Amory carried flour, cleaned counters, and followed instructions with the stiff focus of a man negotiating peace between nations. Sabine handed him a piping bag. Amory looked at it like it had threatened him. Sabine said, Relax. It is frosting, not a board meeting. Amory said, Board meetings are easier. Tried to frost 1 cupcake. The frosting leaned hard to the left. Naira walked by, looked at it, and said, That cupcake looks like it heard bad news. Burst out laughing. Amory looked at the cupcake, then at Sabine. His face softened. It was the first time he had seen her laugh without guarding it. Something warm passed between them, not loud, not rushed, just there. Near midnight, Sabine stood alone by a steel counter, checking the midnight honey batch. Amory walked over. Mother used to bake, Amory said. Sabine looked up. He had never said much about himself. Amory continued, She died when I was young. After that, my father removed anything soft from the house. Music, pictures, recipes, everything. Sabine's voice lowered. I am sorry. Amory looked at the cupcakes. When I tasted yours, I remembered her kitchen, Amory said. Not the exact taste, the feeling. Sabine's walls shifted, not down, but not as high. Grandmother raised me, Sabine said. Mama Inez believed recipes were prayers with measurements. Amory's eyes met hers. I would have liked her, Amory said. Sabine smiled sadly. She would have made you wash dishes before trusting you. Amory looked at the sink full of bowls. Then I should start building character, Amory said. Sabine laughed again. And for one foolish, soft second, she forgot to be afraid. The night of the gala arrived 3 weeks later. The event took place inside a grand hotel ballroom near Rittenhouse Square. Crystal lights hung from the ceiling. White flowers climbed gold stands. Waiters moved through the crowd with trays. The guests wore tailored suits, silk dresses, and the kind of smiles people used when money was listening. Sabine stood near the dessert display in a deep bronze dress under her apron. Naira adjusted one of the cupcake towers. Girl, Naira whispered, if one more woman looks at these cupcakes like she wants to invest in them and judge them at the same time, I am charging emotional tax. Smiled, but her stomach was tight. Amory crossed the room toward them. He wore a black suit with no tie. Somehow he looked both expensive and tired. You came, Amory said. Sabine lifted an eyebrow. I am catering, that usually requires coming. Amory's mouth curved slightly. Fair. Looked at the dessert table. The cupcakes were beautiful. Midnight honey sat at the center like little crowns of gold. Amory said, your grandmother would be proud. Sabine's throat tightened. Not say things like that in public, Sabine said softly. Why? Because I might believe you. Amory's expression changed. Before he could answer, Briar appeared with a tablet in her hand and panic in her eyes. Amory, Briar said quietly, there is a program change. Amory turned. What change? Briar lowered her voice. Garnet added a dessert partnership revealed to the presentation. Amory's face cooled. Without my approval, Briar said. Apparently he got board approval through the hospitality division. I just found out. Looked between them. Is there a problem? Amory said. I will handle it. Heard the words and remembered her rule. No surprises. Her chest tightened. Amory saw her face. Amory said, I do not know what this is yet. Sabine could respond. The ballroom lights went dark. This is the point where everything changes. Before Sabine steps fully into that ballroom storm, viewers should comment whether Amory is about to protect her or break her heart, because what happens next will decide if trust can survive one public betrayal. A huge screen lowered above the stage. Soft music played. The first image appeared, a cupcake. Sabine's cupcake, the Midnight Honey, the name under it said. A Drexler King original, presented by Voss Meridian Group. Felt the room tilt. Amory's face hardened. Briar whispered, oh no. Naira stepped close to Sabine. Please tell me I am not looking at your stolen cupcake on that big, expensive television. Could not answer, because Drexler King walked onto the stage, her ex-fiancé, her old wound in a velvet tuxedo. Drexler smiled at the crowd. Good evening, Philadelphia. Tonight I am proud to introduce a dessert inspired by love, legacy, and family. Stared at him. Her hands went cold. Drexler lifted one of the cupcakes from a gold plate. This recipe has lived in my heart for years, Drexler said. Sabine moved before fear could stop her. She walked toward the stage. Amory raised one hand when security shifted. Not touch her, Amory said. His voice was quiet, but every guard understood. Sabine climbed the stage steps. The ballroom fell silent. Drexler's smile flickered. Sabine, wow, I did not know you were here. Looked at the cupcake in his hand, then at Amory. My grandmother died with flour on her hands and prayers in her mouth, Sabine said. She gave me that recipe when I had nothing but grief and a dream, and tonight I am watching the man who betrayed me sell it under the name of the man I almost trusted. Amory stepped forward. Sabine, I did not know. Sabine's voice shook, but it did not break. That is the problem with powerful men, Sabine said. Somehow they never know until a woman is already broken. Drexler whispered, Sabine, do not do this. Turned to him. Sabine said, that is what I should have told myself 2 years ago. A few people murmured, phones lifted, cameras turned. Garnet Voss stood near the side wall, watching with calm pleasure. Amory saw Garnet smile, and in that moment Amory understood. This was not a mistake, this was a setup, but Sabine did not know that yet. All she knew was pain. She placed her tray down. One cupcake rolled off and landed near Amory's shoe. Then Sabine walked out. Naira followed right behind her, but not before turning toward Drexler. Naira said, that tuxedo is too expensive for a man with discount morals. Then she left too. Outside the hotel, cold air hit Sabine's face. The city moved around her like nothing had happened. Cars passed. People laughed. Somewhere nearby, someone played music on a corner. Sabine stood under the hotel awning and tried to breathe. Naira touched her arm. Sabine shook her head. I cannot talk. The hotel doors opened behind them. Omri stepped out into the night. Sabine, Omri said. She turned on him. Sabine said, Do not follow me out here with that calm voice. Omri stopped. I did not know Drexler would be there, Omri said. It was your event. Yes, your company's name was on the screen. Your family was in that room. Yes, laughed once, bitter and tired. Then what exactly did you not know, Omri? Omri's jaw tightened. Garnet did this. Your cousin. Yes. I am supposed to trust that. No, Omri said. That answer stopped her. Omri stepped closer but kept distance between them. I am not asking for blind trust, Omri said. I am asking for time to prove the truth. Sabine's eyes shone. Time, Sabine said. Drexler took 2 years from me. Debt took more. Shame took more. I do not have spare time for powerful men to figure out whether they hurt me by accident. Omri looked wounded, but he did not argue. Sabine said, I told you no surprises. Omri's voice dropped. I know. Still, I stood in that room and watched my grandmother's work get stolen again. Naira opened the car door for Sabine. Sabine looked at Omri one last time. I almost trusted you, Sabine said. Then she got into the car. Omri stood under the hotel lights as the car pulled away. Behind him, Breyer rushed outside. Omri, Breyer said, breathless. The press is asking questions. Garnet is telling people this was a misunderstanding. Omri looked at the street where Sabine's car had disappeared. It was not a misunderstanding, Omri said. Breyer swallowed. Then what was it? Omri's eyes turned cold. A message, Omri said. Across the ballroom inside, Garnet Voss stood beside Drexler King. Drexler's smile was gone now. He looked nervous. That got messier than promised, Drexler muttered. Garnet adjusted his cufflinks. Messy gets attention, Garnet said. Drexler glanced toward the doors. Sabine is not going to stay quiet, Garnet smiled. She will be too busy trying to keep her bakery, Garnet said. Drexler frowned. What does that mean? Garnet did not answer. The next morning, Sabine arrived at Velvet Ember before sunrise. Her eyes were swollen from crying, but her face was dry. She had cried at home. Now she had work to do. That was how Sabine survived. Fall apart in private, show up in public. The Queen Village street was quiet. A delivery truck rolled by. The bakery windows were dark. The sign above the door looked soft in the early morning light. Sabine stepped closer, then she stopped. Something was taped to the front door. A white envelope. Her name was printed across it. Creed. Naira pulled up behind her and got out of her car holding 2 coffees. Why are we standing like the door owes us money? Naira asked. Sabine did not move. Naira saw the envelope. Her smile faded. Sabine reached for it with shaking fingers. She opened it. The paper inside was formal, cold, full of legal words that made her stomach drop, but one line stood out. Notice of lease termination and property recovery. Read it again, then again. Naira stepped beside her. No, Sabine's voice was barely a whisper. They are evicting us. Naira took the paper and scanned it. This says the building ownership transferred to Callaway Urban Holdings. Frowned through tears. That is Mr. Callaway's company. Naira kept reading, then her face changed. Sabine asked. Naira looked up slowly. Naira said, Callaway Urban Holdings is managed through a parent company. Sabine's heart began to pound. Naira swallowed. The parent company is tied to Voss Meridian Group. Stepped back like the paper had burned her. Last night, her grandmother's recipe had been stolen under the Voss name. Now her bakery was being taken under the Voss name. The same name connected to Omri. Sabine looked at Velvet Ember's dark windows, the place she had built after betrayal. The place that held Mama Inez's memory, the place that taught her how to stand again. Her breath shook, then her phone buzzed. A message appeared from an unknown number. Some doors close before the truth comes out. Sell while there is still time. Stared at the screen, Naira whispered. Who sent that? Sabine did not answer. Because across Center City, Omri Voss had just received a message too. It came from Garnet. Family business, cousin. Do not let the baker make you forget who you are. Omri looked at the message. Then he looked at the half-eaten midnight honey cupcake sitting on his desk. For the first time in years, Omri Voss felt something stronger than control. Fear. Not fear for himself. Fear that the one woman who had made him remember his heart would now believe he had none. And the worst part was, the deeper truth had not even begun to surface. Because Velvet Ember Bakery was not just standing on valuable property. It was standing on a secret the Voss family had buried for nearly 30 years. and Sabine Creed was about to become the one-person powerful men wanted silent. Sabine Creed stood in front of Velvet Ember Bakery with the eviction notice shaking in her hands. The morning air in Queen Village felt cold against her face, but the chill in her chest was worse. The paper was full of clean legal words, neat words, polite words, words that did not care about late nights, burned fingers, unpaid bills, or the memory of a grandmother who had built love into every recipe. Naira Bloom stood beside her, still holding 2 coffees that nobody wanted anymore. Naira read the notice again and shook her head. 30 days. They are giving us 30 days to clear out. Sabine swallowed hard. It says the ownership group is invoking a redevelopment clause. Naira pointed at the paper. A redevelopment clause sounds like something rich people invented so they can sleep at night after ruining somebody's morning. Did not laugh. Her eyes stayed on the name near the bottom. Callaway Urban Holdings. Managed under a parent company connected to Voss Meridian Group. Voss. That name was suddenly everywhere. Last night, Sabine had watched her stolen cupcake appear on a ballroom screen under the Voss name. Now that same name was buried in the paperwork trying to take her bakery. Sabine's phone buzzed again in her coat pocket. She did not want to look. Naira noticed. Is it that strange number again? Sabine pulled out the phone. The message was still there. Some doors close before the truth comes out. Sell while there is still time. Naira's face hardened. That is not normal business language. That is villain language with a data plan. Looked down the quiet street. A delivery truck passed. A woman walked a small dog. Somewhere, a shop owner lifted a metal gate. Life was moving like Sabine's world had not just cracked open. Sabine folded the eviction notice and put it back into the envelope. Naira touched her arm. What are we going to do? Sabine turned toward the bakery door. We open, Sabine said. Naira stared at her. Sabine. We open, Sabine repeated. People ordered breakfast. Mrs. Prout's granddaughter has a birthday order at 10. Mr. Arlen still needs lemon creams for his wife and 1 salad cupcake for himself. Naira's eyes softened. Sabine unlocked the door. If they want to take Velvet Ember, they can wait until the oven's cool. Voss Meridian Tower in Center City, Amory Voss stood behind his black marble desk, staring at Garnet's message. Family business, cousin. Do not let the baker make you forget who you are. For a moment, Amory did not move. Then he picked up his phone and called Garnet. Garnet answered on the 3rd ring, sounding relaxed. Good morning, cousin. Amory's voice was low. What did you do? Garnet chuckled softly. That is a broad question, be specific. The gala, Amory said. Drexler King, the dessert reveal, the eviction notice at Velvet Ember. Was a short pause, then Garnet said, Ah. The baker told you already. Amory's hand tightened around the phone. Answer me. Garnet's voice stayed smooth. The hospitality division approved Drexler's presentation. He had paperwork claiming the recipe concept was his. As for the property, Callaway Urban Holdings has rights under an old redevelopment plan. Nothing illegal, nothing dramatic. Looked out at the gray morning over Philadelphia. You set her up, Amory said. Garnet laughed once. No, I exposed a weakness, yours. Amory's jaw flexed. Garnet continued, you were supposed to run Voss Meridian, not fall soft over cupcakes and a pretty baker in Queen Village. Not speak about her like that, Amory said. Garnet's tone turned colder. There it is, that softness. Augustus would be embarrassed. Amory's eyes sharpened. Father is not running this company, Amory said. Garnet replied. But his name built it. The line went silent, then Amory said, Stay away from Sabine Creed. Garnet sighed as if Amory had disappointed him. That might be difficult. Her bakery is sitting on company-controlled property. Amory ended the call. Briar Whitlock stood near the office door with a tablet in her hand and a face full of trouble. Amory looked at her. How much do you know? Briar took one careful breath. Enough to know today is going to require strong coffee and maybe a company-wide exorcism. She stepped closer. Garnet pushed the property action through a subsidiary. The paperwork is layered, but the parent control traces back to a Voss family trust. It was created before you took full control as CEO. Amory's eyes narrowed. Augustus nodded. Most likely, and Garnet knew exactly where to look. Amory reached for his coat. Briar lifted a hand. Please tell me there is a plan. I am going to Sabine. Blocked the door with surprising courage. No, not like that. Stared at her. Briar said, she just got humiliated in front of rich people, woke up to an eviction notice, and thinks your company is behind all of it. If you show up looking like a billionaire thunderstorm, she may throw a cupcake box at your head. And honestly, the jury would understand. Amory exhaled slowly. What do you suggest? Amory asked. Documents. Breyer said. Facts, proof, and maybe an apology that does not sound like it was drafted by legal. Amory looked toward the window again. For the first time in years, his power felt useless. At Velvet Ember, Sabine moved through the morning like her body knew what to do even when her heart did not. She frosted cupcakes, boxed orders, smiled at customers, answered questions. But every time the bell over the door rang, her stomach tightened. By noon, people had already seen clips from the gala online. Phones had been raised in that ballroom. Of course they had. One video showed Sabine on stage, her voice shaking but proud. Another showed Drexler holding the cupcake. A third showed Amory standing frozen beside the stage. Comments were already spreading. Some people supported Sabine. Some people accused her of causing drama for attention. Some asked why a small baker was at a Billionaire event in the first place. Naira slammed her phone face down on the counter. I hate the internet. The internet needs a nap and a home-cooked meal, kept piping Frosting. Do not read comments. I am not reading comments, Naira said. Sabine looked at her. Naira sighed. I am reading comments with judgment. Bell rang. Both women looked up. Amory Voss entered the bakery. The room went quiet. Even the coffee machine seemed to choose silence. Sabine set down the piping bag. Amory's eyes moved to the eviction notice sitting on the counter, then to her face. Amory said. Naira crossed her arms. Careful. She has frosting in her hand and pain in her spirit. Looked at Naira. Give us a minute. Naira hesitated, then walked toward the kitchen. I will be close enough to hear disrespect. Amory waited until Naira disappeared. I did not know about the eviction notice, Amory said. Sabine's face did not soften. You did not know about Drexler. You did not know about the cupcake. You did not know about the property. Amory, for a man who runs everything, you seem to know very little when it matters. He accepted the words because they were fair. I know what it looks like, Amory said. Sabine replied. You know what it looks like from your tower. I know what it feels like down here. Opened the folder in his hand and placed documents on the counter. Garnet used a subsidiary tied to an old Voss family trust, Amory said. The trust predates my control as CEO. I am investigating it now. Did not touch the papers. Why should I believe anything you bring me? Sabine asked. Because I am not asking you to trust my words, Amory said. I am giving you records. Stared at him, then she said, Last night you told me no surprises. Amory's voice lowered. I failed you. That simple sentence made her throat tighten. She looked away, angry that it affected her. Amory continued. I should have stopped that presentation before the lights went dark. I should have told you as soon as Breyer warned me there was a program change. I thought I could handle it before it touched you. Sabine's eyes flashed. That is exactly the problem. You thought you could handle my life without telling me what was coming. Amory went silent. Sabine picked up the folder and pushed it back toward him. Find your truth, Sabine said. But do not ask me to stand still while you look for it. Amory nodded once. I will fix this. Gave him a sad smile. That is another thing powerful men say. Amory looked at her for one long second, then left. When the door closed, Naira stepped out from the kitchen. Sabine turned away fast, but Naira had already seen the tears in her eyes. Naira came close. Oh, Sabine, whispered. I hate that I wanted to believe him. Naira put an arm around her. That does not make you foolish. It makes you tired of carrying everything alone. Later that afternoon, Sabine was alone in the bakery office when the bell rang again. She looked up, expecting Naira. Instead, Drexler King stood in the doorway. He wore a cream sweater, dark pants, and that same soft smile that had once made Sabine believe in forever. Her whole body went still. Get out, Sabine said. Drexler lifted both hands. I came in peace. Stood. Peace does not wear stolen recipes. Sighed as if he was the tired one. Sabine, last night was complicated. No, Sabine said. Taxes are complicated. You are simple. Drexler's smile tightened. He stepped farther into the office. I did not know they invited you. Laughed. That is popular today. Nobody knows anything. Drexler glanced at the recipe journal on her desk. Sabine noticed. Her hand moved over the cover. Drexler's voice softened. I know you think I stole from you. You did. I made mistakes. You made choices. Drexler looked wounded, but Sabine knew that face now. It was a costume. He said, Amory Voss is using you. Sabine's eyes narrowed. Do not say his name like you know him. I know men like him, Drexler said. They do not taste cupcakes and fall in love. They acquire things, businesses, land, recipes, women who make them feel human for 5 minutes. Hated that the words landed near her fear. Drexler leaned closer. Has he asked about Midnight Honey? Drexler asked. About where it came from, about Mama Inez. Sabine said nothing. Drexler smiled slightly. See, Sabine. Voice turned cold. Leave. Looked at the journal again. Be careful with that book. Some people would pay a lot for what is inside. Walked to the door and opened it. The only thing you need to be careful about is confusing my silence for weakness again. Stared at her. Then he walked out. Sabine locked the door behind him and leaned against it, breathing hard. That night at Voss Meridian Tower, Amory and Breyer searched through old company archives. Boxes were pulled from storage. Digital files were opened. Old property maps appeared on a large screen. Breyer sat cross-legged on the floor in her expensive blazer, surrounded by folders. I joined communications, Breyer muttered. Not billionaire ancestry puzzles. Amory stood over a table, studying an old photograph. His face changed. Breyer looked up. What is it? Amory turned the photo toward her. It showed two women standing outside a small catering kitchen in Old City, near North 3rd Street. One woman was Celeste Voss, Amory's mother, smiling in a white blouse. The other woman was older, round-faced, proud-eyed, and wearing a printed apron. On the back of the photo, someone had written, Celeste and Inez, Bluebell Kitchen, 1996. Amory touched the edge of the photo. Inez, he said. Breyer leaned forward. Sabine's grandmother, Amory nodded. Breyer's voice lowered. So the cupcake connection was not random. Amory turned over another paper. It was a faded invoice for catering work, signed by Inez Creed and Celeste Voss. Attached to it was a note in Celeste's handwriting. Inez says the honey must be dark or the flavor has no truth. Amory sat slowly. For a moment he was not a CEO, he was a son looking at a piece of his mother he never knew existed. Breyer watched him carefully. Amory, Breyer said, Sabine needs to know. I know, Amory replied. Soon, Breyer said. Amory looked at the files. I need to understand what this trust is first. Winced. That sounds dangerously close to keeping a secret. Amory said nothing. Breyer's voice softened. She told you no surprises. Amory closed his eyes briefly. I know. This is the moment for viewers to stay locked in and subscribe because the story has changed. The cupcake was never just a cupcake. If viewers think Mama Inez and Celeste Voss were hiding something bigger than a recipe, this is the time to comment those theories, because the next secret goes all the way back to the beginning of the Voss Empire. The next morning, Sabine opened Mama Inez's recipe journal on the kitchen table in her small apartment. The book was old, thick, and worn soft at the edges. The cover was brown leather with a faded ribbon tied around it. Several pages were missing near the middle. Drexler had taken those 2 years ago. Sabine ran her fingers over the torn edges. She whispered, What did you take from me? She turned to the midnight honey recipe. Mama Inez's handwriting filled the page. Dark honey, not light. A pinch of salt, never skip the salt. Life needs contrast. Smiled sadly. Then she noticed something strange. The back cover had a tiny lifted seam. Sabine frowned and pulled gently. A hidden pocket opened. Inside were 3 folded notes and a small black and white copy of an old deed. Sabine's pulse quickened. She unfolded the first note. Mama Inez had written it. Celeste came again today. Sweet woman. Tired eyes. She fears Augustus is making promises with land that does not belong to him. She asked me to keep records safe. I told her paper can burn, but truth has a way of finding air. Sabine's breath caught. Augustus, Amory's father. She opened the second note. Queen Street property. Never sign without reading twice. AV wants silence. CV wants peace. I want no part of rich men's secrets, but Celeste is afraid. Sat back. Her bakery was near Queen Street. Her hands shook as she opened the deed copy. It showed an old property transfer linked to a Voss-controlled trust. Sabine did not understand all the legal words, but one thing was clear. Mama Inez had known something about the land, something about Amory's family. Sabine grabbed her phone. She almost called Amory, then she remembered Drexler's words. Has he asked about midnight honey? About Mama Inez? Sabine set the phone down. Her heart wanted Amory to be innocent. Her fear did not. At Voss Meridian, Amory finally found the trust name. The Meridian Preservation Trust. Sounded harmless. It was not, Breyer read from the file. The trust was created to hold distressed properties in historic neighborhoods. Queen Village, Point Breeze, a few in Old City, some were later sold. Some stayed buried in shell companies. Amory's face darkened. Who signed the original documents? Breyer turned the page. Augustus Voss, she said. And a legal witness named Garnet Voss. Garnet was young, but his name is here. Amory stood very still. Breyer looked up. That means Garnet has known about this trust for years. Amory's phone buzzed. A message from Garnet appeared. Found the family scrapbook yet? Some memories are expensive. Amory left the office without speaking. He found Garnet in a private conference room on the 32nd floor. Garnet was eating grapes from a glass bowl like a man without stress. Amory shut the door. Garnet looked up. No appointment. Amory placed the old trust document on the table. Explain this, Amory said. Garnet glanced at it and smiled. History. Not play with me. Garnet leaned back. Augustus understood opportunity. Neighborhoods change, people sell, companies buy, that is business. Inez Creed pressured to sell. Garnet's smile thinned. Careful, accusations need proof. Is Sabine's bakery being targeted now? Because it is valuable. Because of the journal. Garnet's eyes shifted just slightly. Amory saw it. Garnet said, that baker has something she does not understand. Amory stepped closer. If you go near her, Garnet lifted a hand. Relax, nobody is going near anybody. This is not some street story. This is paperwork, cousin, clean, legal, boring paperwork. The kind that wins. Amory's voice was ice. I will unwind the trust, Garnet laughed. And tell the board what? That you are willing to risk hundreds of millions because a woman with pretty eyes made you feel guilty. Amory did not answer. Garnet stood. Creed is not your salvation, Garnet said. She is a loose thread, and if you keep pulling, the suit comes apart. That evening, Sabine went to Voss Meridian Tower. She had the hidden notes in her purse and anger in every step. The lobby was all stone, glass, and quiet money. The receptionist looked up politely. May I help you? Sabine said. Tell Amory Voss that Sabine Creed is here. Receptionist hesitated. Breyer appeared from the elevator before the woman could respond. MS. Creed, Breyer said quickly. I was hopping to call you. Looked at her. Then congratulations, I saved you the phone bill. Blinked. Fair. She led Sabine upstairs. Amory stood when Sabine entered his office. His face softened for half a second, then he saw the look on hers. Sabine placed the notes on his desk. Grandmother knew your mother, Sabine said. Amory looked at the notes, then closed his eyes briefly. Sabine's chest tightened. You already knew. I found a photo last night, Amory said. Last night, Sabine repeated, and you did not tell me. I was trying to confirm the trust first. Laughed quietly. There it is again, confirm, handle, investigate, decide, all before telling the woman whose life is being pulled apart. Stepped around the desk. Sabine, my mother's name is in this too. I am trying to understand what happened. I am trying to keep my bakery, Sabine said. I do not have the luxury of studying pain from the top floor. Slowly backed toward the door. This feels like a private conversation, also possibly a dangerous one for anyone holding a tablet. Sabine nor Amory looked at her. Breyer slipped out. Amory said, I did not want to bring you half-truths. Sabine's eyes filled. Amory, I asked for no surprises, not perfect answers, no surprises. He had no defense. Sabine gathered the notes. For a moment I thought maybe you were different, she said. Amory's voice was rough. I am trying to be. Looked at him, trying. That word hurt because she believed it, but believing was not enough. I cannot be your lesson, Sabine said. And I cannot keep paying for what men learn too late. She turned and walked out. Amory did not follow. He had learned enough to know that chasing her in that moment would not be love. It would be control wearing good shoes. The next day, Garnet came to Velvet Ember. He arrived just before closing, wearing a tailored brown coat and a smile so neat it felt unreal. Naira saw him first. No, Naira said. Discount villain has entered the bakery. Garnet smiled at her. You must be Naira. Naira looked him up and down. And you must be the reason sage bundles sell out. Stepped from the kitchen. What do you want, Garnet? Garnet placed a cream-colored envelope on the counter. A solution, he said. Sabine did not touch it. Garnet continued. A generous buyout, enough to relocate, enough to start fresh. Sign the agreement, surrender any claim to the property, and turn over copies of any historical documents connected to the site. Sabine's face hardened. There it is. Garnet tilted his head. There what is? You do not want my bakery. You want my grandmother's notes. Garnet's smile stayed in place, but his eyes cooled. Miss Creed, Garnet said, not every old paper is worth turning life upside down. Leaned forward. Then why are you here? Naira whispered. Exactly. Rich men do not come personally for worthless paper. They send emails with fake warmth. Garnet ignored Naira. He looked at Sabine. Take the offer, keep your dignity, avoid a fight that will exhaust you. Picked up the envelope and tore it in half. Garnet's smile faded. Sabine dropped the pieces into the trash. Grandmother did not raise me to sell my piece to the first man who put a comma in a number, Sabine said. Garnet stared at her for one long second. Then he said, Pride is expensive. Replied, so is underestimating me. Garnet left. Naira waited until the door closed. Then she whispered, Please tell me there are cameras in here. nodded toward the corner. Installed last year, Naira smiled. Good, because his smile alone needs evidence. That night, Sabine took Mama Inez's journal to the bakery office. She planned to lock it in the small fireproof safe under the desk, but the safe was old and stuck. She struggled with the dial for 10 minutes before giving up. Of all nights, she muttered. She placed the journal inside the bottom desk drawer and locked it instead. Then she stayed late, reviewing bills and calling a tenant lawyer whose number Naira found. By 10:40 p.m., exhaustion dragged at her bones. Naira had already gone home after making Sabine promise to call when she left. Sabine finally shut off the lights and stepped outside. She locked the front door twice. Then, as she walked to her car, her phone buzzed. It was Amaury. She almost ignored it, then she answered. Neither of them spoke for a second. Amaury finally said, "Sabine, do not keep the journal at the bakery." Stopped beside her car, her blood went cold. "How do you know where it is?" Sabine asked. "I do not," Amaury said quickly. "But Garnet knows it matters. I think he may try to get access through legal channels or someone else." Looked back at the dark bakery. The journal was inside the desk drawer, her voice tightened. "Now you warn me. I am trying to prevent another surprise," Amaury said. Sabine closed her eyes. She hated the fear in his voice because it sounded real. "I cannot do this with you tonight," Sabine said. Sabine, she ended the call. For 3 seconds, she stood still. Then she turned back toward the bakery. The street was quiet. Too quiet. A wind moved gently through the block. The bakery sign creaked above the door. Sabine told herself not to panic. She had locked the front door. The journal was in the drawer. Everything was fine. But something in her stomach said no. This is the moment where viewers need to stay close, because Sabine is about to step back into Velvet Ember after dark, and what she finds inside will change the whole story. If viewers are rooting for Sabine to protect Mama Inez's legacy, this is the time to like the video and comment. Protect Velvet Ember. Walked to the front door, still locked. She went around the side walkway toward the small back entrance near the alley. Her steps slowed. The back door was slightly open, not wide. Just enough. Sabine's heart pounded. She pulled out her phone and called Naira. Naira answered fast. "Girl, did you get home?" Sabine whispered. "The back door is open." Naira's voice changed. "Do not go inside." Stared at the dark gap. "The journal is in there." "Sabine, listen to me," Naira said. "Call for help. Stand outside." Backed away from the door and called the local non-emergency line first, then changed her mind and called for immediate help because the door had clearly been forced. She gave the bakery address in Queen Village and stayed by the alley entrance, shaking. While she waited, the back door moved slightly in the wind. A soft scrape came from inside. Sabine froze. Then a figure stepped out. Drexler King. He stopped when he saw her. For 1 second, neither of them spoke. Drexler held something under his coat. Sabine's voice broke. "What did you do?" Drexler's face was tense, no longer charming. "Sabine, this is bigger than you," Drexler said. Sabine stepped forward. "That is my grandmother's journal." Backed away. "You do not understand what is in it." "You do not understand what it means to me," Sabine said. Drexler looked past her, nervous now. Far down the street, lights approached. He turned and hurried away through the alley before Sabine could stop him. Sabine did not chase him. She had learned long ago that chasing Drexler only cost her more. She stood there, shaking, until help arrived. Naira pulled up almost at the same time and rushed to her. Naira cried. Sabine pointed toward the alley. "He took it." Naira hugged her. "I told you not to go inside." "I did not," Sabine whispered. "I saw him." They entered the bakery only after officers checked the place and confirmed nobody else was inside. The office was a mess. Drawers were open. Papers covered the floor. Flour had been spilled across the kitchen tiles, leaving pale footprints near the back door. The bottom desk drawer was broken. Mama Inez's recipe journal was gone. Sabine stood in the office doorway, unable to speak. Naira covered her mouth. Then Sabine saw something on the counter, a black envelope. It was thick, expensive, and sealed with dark wax. Pressed into the wax was a crest, the Voss family crest. Sabine picked it up with trembling fingers. Inside was one card. Only 5 words were written on it. Some legacies should stay buried. Stared at the message. The room felt too small. Naira whispered, "Sabine, what does that mean?" Sabine did not answer. Because across Center City, Amaury Voss was already on his way to Velvet Ember, speeding through the Philadelphia night with Breyer calling every lawyer, investigator, and trusted contact she knew. But Amaury was too late. The journal was gone. Drexler had run. Garnet had made his move. And Sabine Creed, who had once rebuilt her whole life from heartbreak, now stood in the ruins of a new betrayal. Only this time, the stolen recipe was not the real danger. The real danger was what Mama Inez had written in the pages nobody was supposed to find. Sabine Creed stood in the office of Velvet Ember Bakery, staring at the black envelope in her hand. The words on the card would not stop burning in her mind. Some legacies should stay buried. The back door had been forced open. Flour covered the floor like pale dust. The desk drawer was broken. Mama Inez's recipe journal was gone, and Drexler King had run into the night with it tucked under his coat. Naira Bloom stood beside Sabine, one arm wrapped around her shoulders. Naira's voice was soft now. No jokes, no drama, just fear and love. Sit down for a minute, Naira said. Sabine shook her head. If I sit down, I may not get back up. And blue lights flashed softly through the bakery windows from the patrol car outside. No one had been hurt. Nothing else had been taken, only the journal. That somehow made it worse. Drexler had not come for cash. He had not come for the register. He had come for Mama Inez's words. Sabine looked at the empty drawer and whispered, "He took her from me again." Naira squeezed her shoulder. "No, he did not. That book mattered, but Mama Inez is not paper. She is in your hands. She is in your recipes. She is in the way you fuss at Cupcakes like they can hear you." Wanted to smile. She could not. The bell over the front door rang. Amory Voss stepped inside with Briar Whitlock right behind him. Amory's suit jacket was open, his face tense, his eyes fixed on Sabine. For once, he did not look like the cold billionaire who controlled rooms with silence. He looked like a man who had arrived too late. Sabine turned toward him and held up the black envelope. "This your family's idea of a warning?" Sabine asked. Amory stopped several feet away. He did not come closer. He had learned that love did not mean rushing in and taking over. He looked at the wax seal. His face darkened. "That crest is not used by the company," Amory said. "It is old Voss family stationery," laughed without humor. "That is supposed to make me feel better." "No," Amory said. "It means Garnet wanted the message to feel personal." Stepped forward carefully. Sabine, the cameras outside the bakery caught Drexler leaving through the back alley. The property office also has a record of a temporary access code issued this afternoon. Naira's eyes widened. "Issued by who?" Briar glanced at Amory. Amory answered, "Callaway Urban Holdings." Sabine's jaw tightened. "The same people trying to evict me." "Yes," Amory said. Sabine looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, "Every road leads back to your name." Amory took the hit like he deserved it. "You are right," Amory said. "And I am done pretending this is only Garnet's problem. If my family built pain into the walls of this company, then I benefit from it until I tear it out." Sabine's eyes filled, but her voice stayed firm. "I do not need speeches, Amory. I need my grandmother's journal." "I know," Amory said. Briar lifted her tablet. "Drexler has a meeting tomorrow morning with a national dessert brand called Crown and Crumb. Their team is in town for the Philadelphia Artisan Food Showcase at Cherry Street Pier this weekend." Naira blinked. That man stole a recipe journal and immediately booked a business meeting. His shame really has no curfew. Closed her eyes. The Philadelphia Artisan Food Showcase was huge. Chefs, bakers, investors, food writers, and restaurant buyers came from all over the region. Sabine had dreamed of entering one day, but she never had the fee, the staff, or the nerve. Briar continued, "If Drexler presents your recipes there, he could lock in a deal before this is sorted out." Opened her eyes. Something changed in her face, not fear, fire. "Then he will not stand there alone," Sabine said. Amory looked at her. "What are you thinking?" Sabine turned toward the bakery kitchen. "I am entering the showcase." Naira stared. "Sabine, the showcase is in 3 days. I know. Our office looks like a raccoon filed taxes in it. I know. The journal is gone." Looked back at her best friend. "The journal is gone," Sabine said. "The baker is not." That line settled over the room. Amory watched her, and for the first time in days, hope touched his face. Then Sabine pointed at him. "But understand this," Sabine said. "Amory Voss does not buy me a booth. Amory Voss does not stand in front of me. Amory Voss does not make me look like some helpless woman waiting for a billionaire to fix her life." Amory nodded. "Understood." Looked at Briar. "Can the application still be submitted?" Briar smiled slightly. "Already open on my tablet. I may be anxious, but I am useful." Naira took the tablet. "Good, because this bakery is about to fight back with butter. This is the moment viewers should hold on to, because Sabine has lost the journal, the property is under threat, and Drexler is about to sell her legacy in public. If viewers are rooting for Sabine to take back her name, this is the moment to like the video and comment. Velvet Ember rises. Next morning, Amory went to the old Voss family residence in Chestnut Hill, a quiet, wealthy section of northwest Philadelphia. The house was large, stone-faced, and cold. It was the kind of place that looked impressive from the outside and lonely from within. Amory had not visited often since his father retired there. Augustus Voss sat in the library near the window, older now but still sharp-eyed. He looked at Amory and said, "Garnet told me you were making noise over a bakery." Amory placed a folder on the table. "I found the Meridian Preservation Trust," Amory said. "I found property transfers from the 1990s. I found Celeste's name." "I found Inez Creed's name." Augustus did not move. Amory's voice stayed calm, but there was pain under it. "What did you do?" Amory asked. Augustus looked at the folder, then at his son. "I built something," Augustus said. "Whose cost?" "At whatever cost the world demanded." Amory's face hardened. "That is not an answer." Leaned back. "People sell when they are tired. People sign papers when they need money. That is business." Amory shook his head. "No, that is pressure dressed as business." For the first time, Augustus's expression shifted. "Your mother never had the stomach for reality," Augustus said. Amory's voice went quiet. "Do not speak about her that way." Looked toward the window. "Celeste found out too much. So did that Creed woman. They thought keeping notes would change the world." Amory's chest tightened. "Where are Celeste's records?" Amory asked. Augustus smiled faintly. "If they still exist, Garnet probably knows." Amory left without another word. In Center City, Garnet Voss was already preparing for war. He sat in a conference room with several board members, telling them Amory had become emotionally unstable. "He is risking Voss Meridian over a baker," Garnet said. "A small business dispute is becoming a company crisis because Amory cannot separate personal feelings from leadership." One board member frowned. "The videos from the gala are damaging." Garnet nodded. "Exactly, and now he wants to review old family trusts. That could open legal and financial chaos." Garnet could continue. The conference room door opened. Amory walked in. Breyer followed him, holding a stack of documents. Amory looked at Garnet. "Keep talking." Garnet smiled. "Perfect timing." Amory placed copies of the trust records on the table. "The board should know," Amory said, "that Garnet used a Voss-controlled subsidiary to pressure a tenant, invited a vendor with disputed recipe claims to a company event, and failed to disclose his personal involvement with Callaway Urban Holdings." Garnet's smile faltered. Amory continued. "An independent review starts today. Garnet is suspended from operational authority pending that review." One board member said, "Amory, that is a serious move." Amory looked at the room. He said, "So is hiding behind paperwork to harm people who trusted our company." Garnet's eyes turned cold. "You will lose everything for this," Garnet said. Amory looked at him. Amory replied, "I may lose a title. There is a difference." Town, Sabine stood in the kitchen of Velvet Ember, surrounded by bowls, trays, and tired hope. She had not slept much. Naira was on her third coffee and moving like a woman powered by stress and loyalty. Sabine's hands hovered over a mixing bowl. The journal was gone, the exact measurements were gone, but Mama Inez's voice lived in her memory. "Not rush the honey, baby. Dark honey needs patience. Salt wakes up sweetness. Burnt sugar is not ruined sugar, it is sugar that survived heat." Whispered, "Sugar that survived heat." Naira looked up. "What?" Sabine's eyes brightened. "I am not making midnight honey," Sabine said. Naira frowned. "That is our signature." "No," Sabine said. "That is what Drexler stole." "I am making something he cannot steal." Naira slowly smiled. "Talk to me." Pulled dark cocoa from the shelf. "Chocolate for grief," Sabine said. "Dark honey for memory. Orange zest for courage. Sea salt because Mama Inez would haunt me if I skipped it. And a burnt sugar ember on top." Naira put a hand over her heart. "That sounds like a cupcake that pays rent and clears generational curses." Laughed for the first time in days. The new cupcake would be called after the ember. Not because everything was fixed, because she was still standing. That afternoon, Breyer arrived with a small box from Amory. Sabine froze when she saw it. Breyer held up one hand. "Before anyone throws flour, he said not to open it unless Sabine wants to." Naira squinted. "What is in it?" Breyer said. "Not jewelry, I checked. If it was jewelry, I was prepared to lecture him in the elevator." Opened the box. Inside was an old photograph. Celeste Voss and Mama Inez Creed stood together outside Bluebell Kitchen in Old City, smiling like women with secrets and strength. Under the photo was a note in Amory's handwriting. "I should have told Sabine as soon as I found this. I am sorry. No excuses. No defense. Only the truth whenever Sabine is ready to hear it. Held the photo for a long time. Naira softened. Briar said quietly, he also found Celeste's storage inventory. There may be more records in an old archive unit near Old City. He is not asking Sabine to come. He just wanted her to know. Looked at the photo. Mama Inez had known Amory's mother. Their histories had been touching long before Sabine and Amory ever met. Sabine whispered, I want to see the archive. Nodded. Then Briar will drive. Briar also parallel parks badly, so prayers are welcome. Naira grabbed her purse. I am coming. Somebody has to protect everybody from emotional decisions and expired storage dust. The archive unit near Old City was small, dry, and filled with labeled boxes from Celeste Voss's estate. Amory was already there, standing back to give Sabine space. He did not rush to her. Sabine noticed. It mattered. Together they opened boxes, old catering receipts, letters, photos, a stained recipe card. Then Sabine found a sealed envelope marked in Celeste's handwriting. For Inez, if I cannot fix it. Sabine's breath caught. She opened it carefully. Inside was a letter. Celeste had written that Augustus and his associates had used confusing notices, urgent deadlines, and shell companies to take control of small properties when owners were under financial stress. She wrote that Inez had refused to stay quiet. Celeste had gathered copies of documents, hoping one day Amory would be strong enough to make things right. At the bottom, Celeste wrote, if my son ever finds this, tell him strength is not what a man can take. Strength is what he has the courage to return. Amory turned away. Sabine saw his shoulders move once, just once. Briar quietly pretended to read a box label. Naira whispered, well, now everybody is crying in a storage unit. Very classy. Stepped closer to Amory. She believed in you, Sabine said. Amory's voice was rough. She should not have had to wait this long. Did not forgive him in that moment, but she understood him more. And sometimes understanding was the first stone on the road back to trust. The day of the Philadelphia Artisan Food Showcase arrived bright and windy at Cherry Street Pier, along the Delaware River. White booths lined the space. Food writers walked with notepads. Cameras flashed. Buyers tasted samples with serious faces. Sabine stood behind the Velvet Ember booth wearing a simple cream blouse, dark pants, gold hoops, and Mama Inez's old apron. Naira arranged the After the Ember cupcakes on black trays. They look powerful, Naira said. Sabine took a breath. They look like we tried. Naira touched her arm. No, they look like we survived. Across the pier, Drexler King stood at a glossy booth for Crown and Crumb. He had a poster behind him with a picture of Midnight Honey. The name had changed. Royal Honey by Drexler King. Naira stared. Royal Honey? That man steals like a raccoon with a branding team. Watched Drexler smile for a camera. For a second, old pain rose in her chest. Then she looked down at her cupcakes. After the Ember was hers, not copied, not stolen, not inherited without growth, created from pain, built from memory. Finished with courage, Amory arrived quietly. He did not stand beside her booth like a hero waiting for applause. He stood back near Briar, letting Sabine own her moment. A showcase judge approached. Sabine lifted a cupcake onto a plate. The judge tasted it. The judge stopped. Then another judge tasted, then another. Soon people began gathering near Velvet Ember. A food writer asked, what is the story behind this flavor? Sabine looked at the crowd. She saw Drexler watching. She saw Amory watching. She saw Naira, eyes shining. Sabine said, this cupcake is called After the Ember. It is about losing what a person thought they needed, then finding out the fire did not take their gift. It only showed them what could not burn. The crowd went quiet. Sabine continued, my grandmother taught me that recipes are prayers with measurements. Someone tried to steal her words, but they could not steal what she planted in me. People clapped, not loud at first, then stronger. Drexler's face tightened. A Crown and Crumb executive stepped away from his booth, checking her phone. Briar had released the documented dispute, the bakery footage, and the company's statement that Voss Meridian was investigating Garnett's unauthorized actions. No insults. No drama for drama's sake, just facts. Drexler tried to smile through it, but his deal was already slipping. The executive said quietly, Mr. King, Crown and Crumb will pause all discussions pending review. Drexler's face fell. Naira whispered, pending review is rich people language for pack your foolishness. The same time, Amory's phone buzzed. The board had called an emergency meeting. Briar looked at him. They want a vote. Today. Amory looked toward Sabine. She had just taken back her name. Now he had to decide what kind of man he would be. This is the second moment viewers should stay invested. Omri is about to choose between protecting his billionaire empire the easy way or telling the truth the painful way. Viewers should comment whether Omri should choose power or choose what is right, because this decision will cost him more than money. Omri left the pier and returned to Voss Meridian Tower. The boardroom was full when he arrived. Garnet sat at the far end, no longer smiling. One board member said, "Omri, the public statement has created risk. Investors are concerned." Omri stood at the head of the table. "Good," he said. The room went silent. Omri placed Celeste's letter, Mama Inez's notes, and the trust records on the table. For years, Voss Meridian benefited from hidden property structures in historic neighborhoods, Omri said. Some may be legal, some may not, but legality is not the same as honor. Garnet snapped. "This is emotional nonsense." Omri looked at him. "No, emotional nonsense is thinking wealth can bury truth forever." A board member asked, "What are you proposing?" Omri answered, "Immediate suspension of the Queen Village eviction actions, independent review of all Meridian Preservation Trust properties, fair lease protection for affected small businesses, ownership options where harm is documented, and Garnet Voss removed from company authority pending the full review." The room erupted. Omri did not raise his voice. He did not need to. "If the board refuses," Omri said, "then Omri Voss resigns as CEO today and releases his findings as a private shareholder." The room went dead quiet. Garnet stared at him. "You would burn your own throne." Omri looked at his cousin. Omri said, "I would stop calling a stolen chair a throne." Hours later, the vote passed, not because every board member had a pure heart, because truth had become too heavy to hide. Garnet was removed from authority. The eviction action against Velvet Ember was frozen. An outside review began that same week. At Cherry Street Pier, Sabine won the Showcase's Rising Artisan Award. But when her name was called, she did not cry because of the trophy. She cried because Naira screamed so loud a judge dropped a napkin. Sabine stepped onto the small stage and accepted the award. Drexler stood far back in the crowd, watching what he could not steal. After the ceremony, he approached her. Naira immediately appeared at Sabine's side. "Choose the next words carefully, Drexler. The heir is already tired of you." Looked smaller now. "I wanted to say I am sorry," Drexler said. Sabine studied him. Maybe he meant it. Maybe he only meant he was sorry he got caught. Either way, she was done carrying him. Sabine said, "An apology is not a key back into my life. It is just a door you finally stopped kicking." Drexler lowered his eyes. Sabine continued, "Return what you took. Cooperate with the review. Then go build something honest if you can." Drexler nodded once and walked away. Naira watched him go. "That was mature. I was hopping for a little more seasoning, but growth looks good on you." Laughed softly. That evening, Omri returned to Velvet Ember. The bakery was quiet. The office was still messy, but the broken drawer had been removed. The kitchen smelled like cocoa and dark honey. Sabine stood behind the counter. Omri entered slowly. "The eviction is frozen," Omri said. "The board approved the review. Garnet is out of authority. Your lawyer will receive paperwork tomorrow." Nodded. Breyer already texted Naira. Naira cried, then pretended it was allergies. "The kitchen," Naira shouted. "It was flour." Sabine and Omri almost smiled. Then silence settled between them. Omri placed something on the counter. Mama Inez's recipe journal. Sabine gasped. Her hands flew to her mouth. "Drexler returned it through his attorney," Omri said. "The missing pages from 2 years ago are not all there yet, but this is back." Touched the cover like it was a living thing. Tears slid down her face. Omri's voice softened. "I am sorry, Sabine. For every moment I thought protecting you meant keeping things from you. For every time my world touched yours and brought pain. I cannot undo all of it, but I can stand in the truth now if you allow me." Looked at him. Her heart still hurt. Trust did not grow back in one night, but Omri was not asking her to forget. He was asking for the chance to become worthy. Sabine said, "I do not need a savior." Omri nodded. "I know. I do not need a man who loves me only when I am easy. I know. I will not shrink so someone else can feel powerful." Omri stepped closer, still leaving space. "I would never ask that," he said. Sabine wiped her cheek. "What do you want, Omri?" He looked at her like the answer had cost him everything and given him peace. "To stand beside you," Omri said. "Not above, not in front, beside, and only if you choose it." Looked down at the journal, then at the bakery, then at the man who had come from a cold tower and learned, slowly and painfully, that love was not control. Sabine whispered, "Slow." Omri's eyes softened. "Slow," he agreed. 1 year later, Velvet Ember Bakery reopened fully on the same Queen Village corner. But it was not just a bakery anymore. The old dark green trim had been restored. The windows glowed warm at sunrise. The sign above the door still read, Velvet Ember Bakery, sweetness after the fire. Under it was a new, smaller sign, the Inez and Celeste Kitchen Program, training women to rebuild through food and business. Had used her showcase prize, community support, fair financing, and the new ownership option from the trust review to secure Velvet Ember's future. She did not let Amory buy it for her. He respected that Amory had changed too. Voss Meridian created a public fund to support small businesses in historic Philadelphia neighborhoods, with outside oversight so it was not just a shiny press release. Breyer made sure of that. Naira called herself Chief Flower Officer and threatened to print business cards. On reopening morning, the bakery was packed. Mr. Arlen came for lemon creams and his secret salad cupcake. Former customers returned. New customers lined up outside. Local reporters came, but Sabine did not speak like a victim. She spoke like an owner. Near closing, Amory entered quietly through the front door. He wore a dark coat, but his face was softer now. Sabine looked up from the counter. Late again, Mr. Voss. Amory held a small white box. I brought something, he said. Sabine raised an eyebrow. If this is expensive, Naira will throw it into the street on principle. From the back, Naira shouted, Correct. Amory opened the box. Inside was one cupcake. It leaned badly to the left. The frosting looked confused. The burnt sugar ember on top was slightly too large. Sabine stared at it, then she laughed, a real laugh, the kind she had once thought heartbreak had taken forever. You made this? Sabine asked. Amory looked serious. I followed the recipe, smiled. No, you negotiated with it and lost, Amory nodded. That is fair. Picked up the cupcake and took a small bite. It was not perfect, but it was sweet. Amory watched her. I used to think love made a man weak, he said. Then I met a woman strong enough to teach me that love only breaks what was fake. Sabine's eyes warmed. I used to think love was a door I had to lock, Sabine said. But maybe I just gave the key to the wrong man. Amory reached for her hand. This time, Sabine let him take it. Outside, Queen Village glowed under the evening light. The bakery windows shined golden against the street. Inside, laughter rose from the kitchen, cupcakes cooled on trays, and Mama Inez's journal sat safely in a glass case near Celeste's photo. Not hidden, not buried, honored. Sabine and Amory did not become perfect. They became honest, and that was stronger. Because heartbreak can teach a person to guard their heart, but healing teaches them not to bury it. Real love does not steal dreams. Real love makes room for them to grow. And sometimes, after betrayal, after shame, after the smoke clears and the tears dry, life still leaves one small ember glowing. With courage, that ember can become a home. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.